Hey, pre-notification gang. You playing early game of the year tonight? Talking about Hi-Fi Rush? You come out with some big praise for games like Hi-Fi Rush and Neon White. Still haven't played Neon White, but I've heard nothing but good things about Hi-Fi Rush. Thanks, Arisa Bauer and the Bits King. But yeah, maybe I'll play it later tonight. Thanks, Arisa Guppy. And the resub Ryan in Tier 1 Apex. The Last of Us Episode 3 drops in 2 minutes. Yep, it does. That is correct. Thanks, the resub sexy. I'm gonna give sub Z Zach. Thanks, resub Gavin and Grandma. And Finka, Mystic, and Bits Dowland. Resub Mario and Blake. I see the mayor of Cincinnati took the time to talk shit on KC and they're currently getting their ass blasted. No. I'm also not watching the game, but I would have liked to see the Bengals take it. Have they ever been to the Super Bowl? I don't think they have. Not even when they had Chad Johnson and Carson Palmer and all them. So that would have been cool. Last year. Last year? Really? Let's see. I guess I just didn't watch last year. Wild. Alright, fuck it then. Now I don't care. Thanks to the resub. CF Gaming, Tungsten, John, Sir, Ace, Biss, and the Prime Limit in Tier 1 Dark. Logan Paul went hard at Royal Rumble. I saw. And the internet instantly forgived him for all the scamming. We can talk about that in a minute. Thanks to Tier 1 Sinker Swim and the resub Bunny, Darian, Neo, Hunter, Jason, Jenny, and Jamal. You watching the new episode of what? Last of Us? Yeah. Thanks to resub Andrew. Hope you're well. And the resub Go Blue. And the resub Mary, Baby, and Prime RJ. Hey J-Mac. Thanks man, Chase edited it. I don't know how much the chair costs. It's been years. I have no clue. It's just a normal chair though, it's nothing too crazy. Thanks for gift sub, Jason. Dark and darker next week. Oh, true. That'll be cool. You seen the new Mario movie clip? Yeah, with Seth Rogen voicing, right? Here's the resub. Fuck. Is there black moist shirts? There is. Thanks to the bits Magpie. And the resub Crazy and Zakilos. Happy birthday Waddy. And the resub Yeti and bits Fate. Hope you enjoy the games. What are we doing today? Just going over some shit and then maybe playing Hi-Fi Rush. We'll see. Is it Prime Clue? And the bits Universal. The resub. Moistadelphia. And give sub Chef. You see Carl's new video on Billy? Not yet. I just saw it got uploaded though. But I have not watched it yet. Thanks to resub Clay. Next speedrun announcement soon? Yeah, probably tomorrow. I'll announce the next 10k bounty. Thanks to Prime Loki and the resub Tomato and Squid. And the resub Holden and bits Universal, B-Dub, and Boss. And the resub Caramel. Maybe B-Dub. Thanks to tier 1 Leon. And the bits Kit. Thanks to resub Soul. You see Mr. Beast's new video of him helping visually impaired people to see. I haven't actually watched the video yet, but I've somehow, and I shouldn't be surprised, but somehow just like helping 1,000 people see for the first time was controversial on Twitter. He got shit on for it. Which is wild. These are resub Syndrasia, Skarn, Pariah, and give sub Chief. Why did he get shit on? Because the whole debate they have on doing a nice thing and filming it negates the nice thing. So by filming the doing the good deed of giving the gift of sight to 1,000 visually impaired people, the fact that he made a video out of it immediately negates the good thing. So Twitter kind of went wild on it, calling him exploitative, all that shit. You inspire good by showing good. That's usually what I've said because for a long time people bitch about how there's no good role models. And then the second someone actually does do things that are net positive good things as a role model, they bitch about it not being good because it's being filmed. So like, what do you actually want? Do you want like positive content to be popular so that way it can inspire people? Or do you not want positive things to happen at all because it's filmed? You just can't win regardless of what you do. I imagine the 1,000 people who are now able to see as a result of the video probably don't feel like they've been exploited or are victims of Mr. Beast. They're probably just very happy, would be my guess. Thanks to the 10 gift subs, Big Axe. Appreciate the big drop, man. And the anonymous 3 gift subs. The resub Lecro, Hogan, and Ben. And gift sub Earth. And the resub Skrilla. True Smokey. And the resub Caxi. How are the people selected? I don't know, I haven't watched the video. All I know is 1,000 people that were visually impaired had their lives drastically improved as a result of a Mr. Beast video. Which to me sounds like a good thing. And I've said for a long time, if positive videos like doing that are popular, it will inspire more people to do it. Even if the motive is, okay, I'll do something good for views. So there is still a beneficiary. There is still someone who needed help that got help, even if the motive was still attention and views or to grow your brand. There is still someone that benefited. So no matter how negative you want to get about it, at the very core, somebody that needed help got help. I don't know why you want to be like arguing on their behalf when those people that got the help are probably just very happy to have received help. It's just not a very difficult to understand thing. I think you're wrong here. I'd like to hear from you. I'm curious. So, the 1,000 people that got eyesight because of Mr. Beast, or had their eyesight improved, perhaps, should he have not done it? I would like to hear from you, Money. Legitimately, I'd like to hear your take on it, because I've seen Twitter's take, and it's pure brain rot. No matter how you boil it down, people got helped. It was bait, someone always says it. Oh. Oh, you were baiting. My bad. Because I would really like to hear from it, because no matter how you spin it, no matter how negative, there is still people that got helped by it. So how can you be mad for them when they're happy? I'll never understand it. You can make an argument like, oh, people are only doing good things because it's beneficial to them. Okay, that could be true, but the people that got helped still got helped. So is it a bad thing? I don't think so. And people have always wanted inspiring positive content to be popular. And now Mr. Beast makes some of it popular, and it's an issue. So how do you win? What do you want? Thanks to the resub, Tortellini, Desanius, Bungo, and Noxed. It's just people that think they're changing the world by complaining on Twitter. calling everything out and finding the worst in everything. Somehow they believe that they're doing a net positive, a benefit to society. Thanks, resub Brojo. And the resub Lancer. Bits Zach, Aussie, and Smokey. And the resub Trash Boat, PC, and Nuclear. And the tier 1 I'm Himlu. And the gift sub Francis. And the resub Jam It Up. Have you seen Bob Gimlin? Covers Bigfoot? No, I don't know if I've seen Bob Gimlin, but I love the Bigfoot community. Thanks to the resub. Northman. Have you seen the new E&A trailer? No, I don't know what that is. Makes the resub Saints. And the resub Billy. And the resub Ponzu. How do I feel about Hogwarts Legacy? I think it looks remarkably mediocre. I don't see it being a good game, but I'm gonna try it anyway for the sake of the moist meter. Maybe I'll be surprised, but I doubt it. I don't think it looks very good. What makes it look mediocre to you? Legitimately everything I've seen. So like the gameplay, like the actual combat, I think has some level of potential, but everything they've shown is so surface level, it just seems super spammy. And then everything else is them going to class, so that's not really exciting. I don't really want a school simulator. Oh, right. I saw this floating around on Twitter. I started it and didn't finish it. But from what I understand, the core of the argument is the channel, and I always get the name wrong, so I'm not going to bother, but the channel I've been a fan of for a while is apparently funded by billionaires. So they're making the argument that they do less... What's the right way of phrasing it? They do content that favors their investors' perspective and their interests, as opposed to more just factual and unbiased looks at topics. But then I saw that it mainly boiled down to a lot of the things they call out is their optimism when it comes to things, which I think is a really weird argument to make. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with taking a sad topic or like a scary topic and trying to find an optimistic explanation for how we could conquer it or what it could mean or how it could be improved. I don't really understand. I haven't watched it, so maybe the video is a little more nuanced than that, but that's what I've seen the whole discourse on Twitter about. Thanks for 5 gift subs. Osmosis and the Resub Chicken, Jose and Baron and the Bits Kirsch.
In November 2016, Cr1tikal published a video on the most gruesome parasites. It tells a story of devastating diseases that the world governments couldn't solve, so the big pharma stepped in to be the hero of humanity and save the day. It's one of those too good to be true stories, so I decided to look it up myself. And the real events are nowhere near as glaring for the big pharma as Cr1tikal presents. Pharmaceutical corporations did donate their medicine to the most affected regions, but they didn't do it out of their own volition or initiative. They did it after decades of neglecting the diseases because they weren't profitable enough to manufacture fixes for them. Bill Gates is actually responsible for much of the neglect. His charitable priorities overemphasized big-name diseases such as malaria, HIV, or tuberculosis, but in the process of doing so, they drew crucial attention and resources away from more common and structural problems.
That's not super surprising to hear, at all. I haven't seen the video that he's talking about here, though. That absolutely sounds par for the course. That goes for everything. They're not going to pursue something that they can't make a profit on. That's the sad reality of it. I don't know if anyone ever looks at pharmaceutical companies or anyone that's making medicine as some benevolent saints that just want to save the world. So that's not surprising. Maybe the video is making the argument that the drug companies are heroes and saviors that just wanted to push us to salvation. Maybe, but I highly doubt that's what it was.
Many of which led to outbreaks of other diseases. After the public pressure was too large to ignore, the drug makers decided to join the plan. Big Pharma never came up with this initiative. It was the World Health Organization who had proposed a roadmap to eradicate the diseases by 2020 and convinced governments and NGOs to join them.
Example.
The pharmaceutical conglomerates never assumed any risk. These corporations took home almost $9 trillion in profits in 18 years. So this little stunt is really just a pocket change for them.
Big
this
clams.
video was paid for by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it so happens that the Gates are heavily invested in many of the pharma companies Cr1tikal portrays as heroes. They own major holdings in many of the participating companies.
Does the channel ever portray them as heroes, though? Of the ones I've seen where he does mention where they do mention pharmaceutical companies, I never really got the impression that he, like, puts them on some pedestal as heroes. More so just looking at what they did and how it affected it or changed it. Okay, so it's not just me. I never got that impression. It just really seemed more matter-of-fact, like... And, again, they did actually step in and do things. From everything I ever saw from the channel, it was just like, they stepped in and they did this. And then they just have, like, a cutesy animation associated with it. I never really got the impression that they were trying to suck the dick of the pharmaceutical companies. But again, I guess it could just be me. Thanks to the resub. Gerber, Lady, Egbert, Titan in the Prime Matter, and Nas. I always thought they were a bit bleak sometimes on their outlook, but not much else. So that's interesting because usually the takeaway, and what a lot of this boils down to, is they don't look at things bleak, they look at things highly optimistic. And since they do receive funding from, I guess, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that optimism could be more as like a propaganda tool, where it's trying to put all of their interests in the best light. So that's where it all kind of stems from. Most people don't find it bleak. Actually, the opposite.
And both Bill and Melinda Gates are trustees of 2 pharma firms. This video isn't positive news. It's a positive PR. Cr1tikal admitted they wouldn't have made this video if it wasn't paid for by Gates. Okay, what the hell just happened?
Oh, let me read that. kind of glossed over that pretty quick. What I can say for us is the best case scenario, the Foundation people have been nothing but hands off. Probably would not have made the horrible Parasites video without the grant, for example. But honestly, it was an awesome creative challenge and one of the favorite videos we've made so far. Okay.
Okay, what the hell just happened? This one video is the perfect culmination of everything that's wrong with billionaires funding media to get the coverage they need. It provides a whitewashed take on real events, it undeservedly elevates the role of private entities, and gives a marketing boost to their agenda and financial interests. The ultra-wealthy are pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into media companies, academic institutions, and governing bodies to rig every step of policymaking in their favor. When billionaires want to open up the markets for their trade, they'll fund media outlets that tell the audience how important investments, innovations, and economic growth are. They'll donate to research that will give them the argument that whatever they decide to do is science. They'll give to political campaigns to get the right candidates elected so that the laws they lobby for are easier to pass. We have identified this to be a problem with all big institutions, and this is what it did to our trust in them.
But how does that tie in to the YouTuber?
So if it is a problem when billionaires fund our politicians, our journalists, and our academia, is it also a problem when they fund our YouTubers? Because billionaire funding is a lot more prevalent on YouTube than you might think. It's far beyond the scope of this 6-year-old video. I didn't realize I was watching a video sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation because Cr1tikal didn't reveal this information until the last 20 seconds of the video.
Well, I imagine it's in the description though, right? It'd be illegal. You have to make it very, like, one of the main things, you have to make it very clear that it's a sponsored video. Interesting. It's not immediately clear. It's not in the description here. So was this video... hold on, let me see. Why don't I just see for myself where it comes in and how.
Remember that from time to time. This video was made possible in part by a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and your support on patreon.com.
Okay, so it's not per se a sponsored video, but I can see where this would easily be a bit yucky, where a grant did help fund this video, and the information paints the things that this is involved in a very positive way. But I guess it's not per se a sponsored video.
Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and your support on patreon.com. If you want to help us make more videos, you can do so here. If you're disappointed...
That's very interesting. What does it matter? Well, what do you mean, what does it matter? Let's say I'm paying Kotaku to post an article about, Jesus Christ, a mobile game that I've made. And I'm like, hey, maybe just look at the mobile game and talk about, you know, some cool features that we're thinking about. You know, talk about mobile gaming in general, but I'd like you to talk a little bit about my game when talking about, like, these innovative features. And it's not mentioned till the end that my input or my money helped write that article. It's a really bad example. That's actually a terrible example. Because this is a grant, not a direct contribution, I suppose. What's a better way of explaining it? Yeah, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to stand on that. I think the concept should be pretty clear. If you are getting money, or if you have money come in, and you make a video that kind of paints everything where that money came from in a positive way, it seems a bit less than genuine. It seems like perhaps that financial incentive may have skewed some information in order to make it more favorable to the person or the group where the money came from. That's why, like, if a review is sponsored, everyone takes the review less seriously because it's like, oh, you're probably not going to say anything overly harsh because you had money come in from that company. Isn't that what you do, though? What, pay Kotaku to talk about my mobile game that I don't have? What? Thanks for your subs, Sonic, Lauren, and Dumpy, and the 5 Goose subs fundy. I still think it's a big deal. Well, I don't know if it's a big deal yet. I haven't finished the video. But I could see, like, at least the argument for it, where if they're getting money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and a lot of the things they talk about paint everything that this foundation does in a positive light, without addressing, like, any kind of negative stuff, that seems a little odd, as if it's been influenced by the money. Seems more ulterior motive driven, which I think is kind of the core of where this comes from. Calling it a propaganda machine for billionaires. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't see the whole video, Neon, but it was on my homepage. I watched some of it when I was in bed this morning. Thanks to Bits Dojin.
I actually first found out about the sponsorship from Cr1tikal Medium article on how they treat sponsors. Here, Philip Detmer, the owner of the channel, admitted that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was their biggest supporter. So big, in fact, it helped transform Cr1tikal into a powerhouse. But Philip Detmer also told us that Cr1tikal is almost entirely viewer-funded. I wanted to know where the truth lies, so I went to the foundation's grant database and found this. In November 2015, Cr1tikal was awarded $570,000 from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for a 49-month-long contract. I wanted to see the full extent of this contract, so I started going through their YouTube videos to see how many were made for the foundation. And that's when I entered a rabbit hole. I was able to identify at least 8 videos Cr1tikal made for the Gates Foundation. When they were awarded the Gates grant...
Is it for the Gates Foundation? I don't think so. I've seen some of these. I never got the impression they were for anyone aside from just bringing light to a topic.
When they were awarded the Gates grant, the Patreon was relatively small, yielding less than $9,000 per month. The money from Gates would cover at least $11,000 per month, or $71,250 per video. So the Gates money alone would be at least on par with their Patreon, but Gates wasn't alone. Throughout my research, I kept discovering more and more billionaire-sponsored videos. It's not just one foundation. It's George Soros, the Templetons, and Facebook co-founder Dustin Moskowitz. They also made a sponsored video for this professor from Oxford University, William MacAskill, who is funded by Open Philanthropy, and Cr1tikal also received money from Bill Gates' personal blog and venture capitalist funds. From what I was able to find, Cr1tikal made at least one video for Open Society Foundations, at least 3 videos for Templeton World Charity, 3 videos for Bill Gates' blog and Breakthrough Energy, and 1 video for William MacAskill.
He keeps saying made the videos for them, but in none of these videos does it promote anything, at least not that I can recall from the ones I've seen. Thanks to Resub Freak. And it doesn't really say anything too much either about like the actual, I don't know, players in the story. Though I guess if you look at the animation, for example, when it had like free drug ribbon stamped on one of the things and the doctor giving like a thumbs up, I guess you could interpret that as like a, wow, this is an incredible company and they're fucking heroes. I could maybe see that. But I feel like that's just more because the audience is all over the place in terms of age, so that kind of animation is going to resonate and make it clear to everyone like what's going on, as opposed to it be more like a patting on the ass and a celebration. At the very end of all of them, he says who it was funded by. Yeah. So that's what I just learned. Usually, when it comes to a sponsored video, you have to make it abundantly clear that it is sponsored, which is why at the top of every description that's sponsored, it has the sponsor. The grant to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is not even in the description. It's in the last 20 seconds, where most people have probably already clicked off. Because it's not technically sponsored. They have funding from the foundation, but they didn't sponsor this video. They just have money from the grant, and that money helped create this video. But they didn't make it for them, technically. The resub Chance, Flash, Harley, Halfbrain, the Prime V3.
We know they were awarded $500,000 from the Gates Foundation and almost $6 million from Open Philanthropy. If they kept the same per video rate since the Gates grant, it could be estimated Cr1tikal received at least $7 million from billionaire funds. This would be more money than Cr1tikal received from their supporters on Patreon in the entire history of the channel. This made me realize that Cr1tikal never was this small, independent, almost entirely viewer-funded channel. As soon as the studio incorporated, billionaires began lining up. They transformed the small Munich-based design studio with 5 employees into a multi-million-dollar media powerhouse with dozens of employees. Cr1tikal was also sponsored by regular commercial businesses such as Brilliant or Skillshare, but neither of these has multi-billion-dollar investments in global industries, and they aren't spending millions in political lobbies trying to influence lawmaking. And most importantly, they don't fund the sources that Cr1tikal uses for the research. And what the hell is going on with Cr1tikal research? Cr1tikal told us their research is impartial and fact-checked by scientists to ensure integrity. But my skepticism alarms were already buzzing out of their asses, so I started looking at their sources and noticed something odd. Many of their videos rely primarily on a single publication. This publication is a partner of the channel, and they help them with research and provide numbers for their scripts. This publication appears so frequently in their sources, their website is quoted up to dozens of times in a single document. This research publication is not some independent group of scientists just sharing their hard science for free. It is our rolled in data, heavily funded by Bill Gates and other billionaires, many of which have also sponsored Cr1tikal videos. The publication received...
Okay, I will say, probably shouldn't just be using one source for everything this frequently. That's I think that's a very fair point. I think you should probably get information from more than just one source. Especially because it's, again, I think this still is going to boil down to more of like, instead of it being more correlation as opposed to causation. But this certainly is just, at the very least, laziness to keep using the same source for all of this information. And that source also happens to be funded by your grant. That's not amazing. There's a Prime Kuro in the resub god tier. Stop spreading this conspiracy bullshit. Well, it's not really a conspiracy. They haven't made any claims aside from like the factual stuff of they have the grants, which they openly talk about. It's at the end of the videos. And they also use one source a lot. What's the conspiracy? That's just factual. There's your resub Cubone. The hated one channel is all about conspiracy. Could be, but so far he hasn't said anything conspiratorial. He's just pointing out things that I do think are a little less than stellar. This should be at the beginning of the video, or at the very least in the description. When a video is at least partially funded by an organization, I think that should be mentioned as opposed to the last 20 seconds for the sake of transparency and to play by the standard actual rules of sponsored stuff. I get that it's not technically a sponsor, but at the very least you should disclose it and make it clear to everyone. I don't think that's good practice from them there. But right now all he's doing is pointing out a lot of their funding comes from these grants and these VCs. and also using this one source, which is also funded by one of their investors. Funded by billionaires, we get it, but where's the pro-billionaire propaganda? That's what I'm saying. And from what I've read, it boils down to the channel's very optimistic when it comes to the bleak topics, which they're painting as it sucking the dick of their investors, which again is an impression I never got when watching the content. So I'm curious to see what argument he makes for that. Grants and a paid sponsorship are very different. They're kind of different. I won't give you very different. At the end of the day, you got money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Let's say you wanted to make a video. Let's say this channel wanted to make a video on malaria, and they start talking about things that make the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation look bad. They probably wouldn't get that. They probably wouldn't be favorable with this anymore. So they probably wouldn't talk about anything that makes them look bad. That's where there's a problem. Whether it's a sponsor, whether it's a grant, it still kind of makes it more hesitant to tackle something that might paint this in a bad light. Yeah, it just becomes kind of a conflict of interest. You received this money from this foundation, you're probably going to avoid any of the topics that make that foundation look bad. But it's all speculative at best. But you just keep moving the goalposts. It's not speculative to say that this money came from them, because they have openly stated that they did get grants and this money was, or these videos were partially funded by the foundation and their grant. That's not speculative. What is speculative is whether or not it's pro-billionaire propaganda they're peddling. Which I have not been convinced on in the slightest yet.
At least $4.8 million from the Gates Foundation alone, but they were also funded by Open Philanthropy, Templeton, and William McCaskill. All of these entities had their series of sponsored videos at their Cr1tikal channel. Their partnership with Our World in Data was initiated by the grant from the Gates Foundation through the first video on overpopulation, made in collaboration with Max Roser, the founder and lead scientist of Our World in Data. Following this money trail led me to discover that the data in Cr1tikal videos isn't such a rock-solid science as they authoritatively present in their videos. Many of the numbers from Our World in Data Cr1tikal relies on so much are complete garbage. In the videos on overpopulation, they show this amazing decline in global poverty, a trend which they attribute to economic growth. But where is this data coming from? It's from Max Roser graph at Our World in Data. But look at how the data points go all the way back to the early 19th century. None of these historical numbers are proven. Real data on poverty for the majority of the world didn't exist until 1981. Anything before that is a speculation. And who defines extreme poverty? The World Bank does. How? By calculating the lowest possible rate as an average from poverty lines of the poorest countries in the world. That's living below $1.90 a day. Scholars strongly disagree with this rate and suggest at least $7.40 a day. With the World Bank's rate, billions of people that are extremely poor according to their national poverty lines end up in lower middle income regions, which is what makes the graph looks like this instead of this if we use the $7.40 line, or this if we leave out China. So not a dramatic decline at all, but an increase actually, or a stagnation at best, since 1981. There's also half of the world's population suffering from hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition, more than 40 million modern slaves, and the ever-widening income gap between the richest and the poor. So really hard to come to an optimistic conclusion that poverty is somehow on the decline.
But I just can't chalk that up to it necessarily being like propaganda. That could very well, once again, just be a more optimistic look at a very bleak subject. And I've seen that video. I just didn't get the impression that it was... It just feels like optimism equal propaganda. Thanks to the prime skill in the resub bin. What does this have to do? The point he's making is the data they present paints a much prettier picture than the real data, because they're using the $1.90 a day model, which makes it look like it's declining, but that's not what a lot of people seem to agree on. Most people seem to agree that the 740 is the poverty line, and using that data, it's actually been increasing. So it's right now it's being accused of trying to paint it as a declining thing when it's really not. That's the point they're making. But that just doesn't seem malicious. Like, it just really seems like that's still a pretty fair metric overall. But it's a more optimistic look at it, but it doesn't seem like it's coming from a place of trying to be... It doesn't seem like it's coming from a place of just trying to suck up to the people that give them the money. False information, though, in general, it's not false. The information itself isn't wrong, but it's using a metric that not everyone agrees on. So it's using a different metric than what other people seem to prefer. But that doesn't mean it's false. It could be manipulative, though, to paint the narrative in a different way than the reality. But I still don't even know if I fully agree with that take on it either. I'd have to rewatch the video to see exactly what arguments are being made. Thanks to resub GV and the Prime Chaos. Another thing that I read, and we haven't gotten to it in the video, but in here he brings up a study from September of 2020 to critique a video that I'll never get that name right, but to critique a video that they made back in June of 2020. So in September of 2020, new information came out that made the video published in June 2020 less accurate. And he holds that against them as if they were somehow supposed to predict the future. And I don't think that's necessarily a fair criticism. This is the Prime JFK and the resub Pupi. Painting a different picture than reality isn't being optimistic as propaganda. Well, I'm not saying it's painting a different picture. That's the argument. Again, it's a metric that people are disagreeing on with the level. Is it $1.90 a day or $7.40? I guess depending on where you're going to get your information from or who you're going to talk to, they're going to give you something different. So it just depends on where you think that number should be. The information's not wrong, but they paint two very different pictures depending on how you look at it. The tier 1 here come. It's misleading to use that data. But based on what? Maybe it's misleading for the people saying 740. I don't know. I'm not knowledgeable enough on the topic. Maybe the $1.90 is actually the more accepted one, but 740 is something that the hated one cherry-picked, where he found a couple articles where people agree it should be 740. I have no way of knowing. I'm not knowledgeable enough. You can do this for every piece of data ever. Because I could also say, I think the poverty line is anything under $15 a day. And then this would paint an entirely different graph. I don't know what the right metric is.
But it is a conclusion touted by Bill Gates, who also paid for this video to be made.
As the economist Max Roser has said,
the world has done quite well on this.
The newspapers could have run a headline.
The lives of the poor will improve more in the next 15 years than at any other time in history.
Number of people in poverty fell by 137,000 since yesterday.
Comes out as what for many people will be a stunningly positive story.
Many videos made in partnership with Our World in Data can be dissected like this. Look at the numbers on historical emissions from the video on who is responsible for climate change. Where are these numbers coming from? Our World in Data, of course. But that's just one source that conveniently downplays the role of the developed countries in climate change. According to a paper from Lancet, funded by no one, the US is responsible not for 25% of emissions, but 40%. The EU is responsible for 29% instead of 22%. G8 emitted.
Is this the one that came out in September of 2020?
CO2, and the
because this is the one I might have just been talking about. Yeah, so this, okay. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, so this paper came out in September 2020. The video he's critiquing with this information came out in June of 2020. They wouldn't have had this information available to them to make this topic, or to include in this topic. There would have been no way. So this, like, maybe now, if they had made this video, after this came out, that video would have turned out very differently. We have no way of knowing, but they had no way of being able to incorporate this information. It's not like they maliciously left it out and ignored it. They just didn't have it. I'll double check, but let's see. Which video was this one? This one's the emissions video, right? What's the name of it? Does he show it? You know, how about I just look it up? Wait. No, I'll just look it up. Who's responsible for climate change? Yep, June 21st, 2020. And the paper that he is now referring to came out in September of that year. They just didn't have the information available. They didn't just ignore it and leave it out on purpose. It didn't exist at the time. Or at least, not publicly. Maybe if they were funded more heavily by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they could have peered into the future and gotten a hold of this paper before it went live. But yeah, when this video came out, they did not have it. That's why none of that information is there. They wouldn't have used it anyway, since they always use the same source. Again, that's speculative though, which... Oh, you're not the guy that was just talking about speculative for the last couple of points. That is speculative. Maybe they wouldn't have used it, maybe they would. We have no way of knowing for sure. All I'm saying is this video came out before this. It's not like they didn't just leave this out, they didn't maliciously omit this information, it didn't exist. Maybe they wouldn't have used it? Couldn't tell you. No one can.
Role of the developed countries in climate change. According to a paper from Lancet, funded by no one, the US is responsible not for 25% of emissions, but 40%. The EU is responsible for 29% instead of 22%. G8 emitted 85% of historical CO2, and the global north is accountable for 92% of excess carbon in the atmosphere. These numbers draw a much less equitable share of responsibility than Cr1tikal. As I was analyzing more and more videos, I actually discovered a plot I did not expect to find. In a couple of separate videos on climate change, Cr1tikal briefly mentions seemingly random selection of innovations.
Or a new generation of nuclear power plants to new batteries, electronics and steel, low carbon production of cement, artificial meat, carbon capture, direct air capture, and carbon capture.
There doesn't seem to be any objective merit as to why I mentioned these in particular, but they do have in common two things. Bill Gates has invested millions into startups developing low carbon cement, steel, batteries, alternative meat, nuclear energy, and carbon capture.
Wait, why is alternative meat thrown in here? Everyone is invested in alternative meat. It was one of the biggest fucking Silicon Valley investments for everyone. I have a fucking friend who invested in Impossible Foods back in, like, Jesus Christ, like 2013. Like, I don't think that one's necessarily on the same level as the other shit where there's some kind of ulterior motive perhaps that you could digest. Everyone invested in alternative meat. Where was that headline? It doesn't matter. I guess I don't need to see the headline. Yes, the fuck it is. What is the ulterior motive of lab-grown meat? Is Bill Gates putting microchips in our meat? I can see why talking about like all the other stuff, I could see why that would be something pertinent. I understand where that line of thinking is going to go. But the lab-grown meat, this is just something that legitimately everyone invested in that had money back in like 2012, 2013 when this became a huge fad. That's why they push vegan shit. Oh my god, who is in the chat right now? They push vegan shit because Bill Gates invested in lab-grown meat? What the fuck? What are you what are you... Everyone that had money back in when this started popping off as investment opportunities put money into this. Not just Bill Gates. Like I said, I know a guy who fucking put money into this. These companies got so much investment, and I'll tell you one thing, the guy who put money into it is not smart enough to be putting any kind of fucking microchips in there. The ulterior motive there was make money, because this was going to be a huge thing. Also, I think lab-grown meat has a ton of potential. Like, as a concept, I actually think that shit is so hype. The current agricultural industry is so fucking bad for everything and everyone. I hope lab-grown meat pops off. Why are you defending them so much? Feels like you're biased. It's crazy how I've already pointed out a couple things that I find very suspicious about the way they handle, such as like the sponsors and using one source that's also funded by their grant. And yet somehow, because now I'm not agreeing with every single thing, I'm just supporting. I hate this mentality. It's the same thing with any kind of political opinion. If you're not 100% on that team, you must hate it. You're against them. Why can't people just take information and point out things that are wrong or right? Both. The Mummy's my favorite movie. I can point out a million fucking flaws. I still love that movie. You don't have to blindly support and digest and eat, consume everything and just assume it's all correct because you play for that team or you subscribe to that belief. You can call out and criticize things that don't make sense. It's not illegal. It's healthy. So there are a couple things this channel has done that has been pointed out, I didn't know, that I do find a bit odd and I don't think is handled correctly. But then there's a couple things this video is mentioning that are just wrong, such as the emissions thing. Their emissions video was made in June 21st of 2020. The paper that this video cites as the contradictory evidence that proves some of these numbers are incorrect didn't come out until, what the fuck was it? September of 2020. So the information wasn't there. They didn't just ignore it, it just wasn't fucking there. They couldn't predict the future, so it's a bad point. No matter how you spin it, it's a bad point. That information was not available to them. They couldn't have cited it. It's just that simple. They could have retracted. Maybe they should have. I'd have to rewatch this video. But if I recall correctly, the end of this video still does call out corporations and the countries as being the main culprits of emissions and the main drivers of the problems with the climate. So the overall message is still accurate regardless of the numbers, but maybe it is so egregious they should have retracted it. That's a fair argument. I could agree with you there. I'd have to rewatch it. Is it Prime Wonder and the bits explain?
Nuclear energy and carbon capture. And none of these technologies have proven to be commercially viable or scalable enough to make them count. The innovations lack robust scientific backing, and experts do not agree relying on them is a valid strategy. Many videos on topics that align with the interests of Cr1tikal billionaire sponsors are frequently sprinkled with messaging about how investments and innovations will solve a problem or make the world a better place.
By investing in these things right now, investment and aid and fair investment. Is investment massive investment as investment pours in?
It's obnoxious how often this happens.
We invest in innovation that lead to innovation, the nature of innovation. And innovation, but innovation, the more time we give innovation, and innovations like artificial meat.
The standards for quality of such
artificial meat again. Again, I don't feel like there's anything wrong with just mentioning innovation. If he's calling the action to invest in these things, obviously that's a problem. But just mentioning things that are innovating in the fields to hopefully make it better is once again just optimism. Optimism does not just inherently equal propaganda. Because, I mean, Jesus Christ, everything gets innovated. AI technology came out of nowhere and it's changing the whole fucking game. I don't think there's anything wrong with mentioning innovative things that are in that ballpark that you're talking about.
Data is profoundly lowered in order to make these hidden injections work. In the instance of carbon capture, Cr1tikal pulled the numbers on cost straight from a Gates-funded magazine, who took the number from a Gates-funded private carbon capture facility. But that's the lowest estimate. In reality, it could be as much as twice as expensive today, and still at least twice as expensive as trees are right now than carbon capture is projected to be in the most optimistic estimates, which won't be real until at least the next decade. Rather than solving the climate crisis, many scientists argue such investments divert attention away from more impactful solutions and delay phasing out of modern industrial methods and fossil fuel dependence. Cr1tikal doesn't tell you which technologies Bill Gates is invested in and how positive messaging about them is advancing his positions. But Cr1tikal did take the effort to mention exactly those technologies that Bill Gates and his billionaire friends are most invested in. There is a pattern that can explain why Cr1tikal videos are like this. In many videos that coincide with Bill Gates' interests, they collaborate with our world in data or prioritize their content on these issues. In their video on Do We Need Nuclear Energy to Stop Climate Change, Cr1tikal prominently links to Our World in Data's pieces on nuclear energy. This video is not sponsored by Gates, but the billionaire is betting heavily on his new generation of nuclear reactors. Cr1tikal's source document links to Our World in Data 27 times, or about every third reference. Cr1tikal made videos heavily criticizing
Which is something I do think is lazy, at the very least. Even if not malicious, it's beyond lazy to only use one source for the information, especially when there's something like that. So I think that point is fair, and especially because that is just... I think that's just not a good look if you do receive money from the grant that also funds that. At the very least, use other sources to corroborate the information. I think that's a very clear, obvious thing. Even if not malicious, it's lazy. I don't know if it's malicious or they're just using that because it's convenient. But still, just use more than just that main source.
Food. This is another topic of major investment from Gates, who thinks industrialized agriculture with pesticides and GMOs is the best approach to solving world hunger, which it hasn't solved so far. In all 4 cases where Cr1tikal draws verdict on organic food, Our World in Data is cited as reference. This video is also not sponsored by Gates. The most generous billionaire is one of the earliest backers of alternative meats, owning major positions
this is becoming
in
like a
vegan
big part
and
of the
meat-free
video.
protein companies. Cr1tikal has made a series of videos on meat, all with a strong verdict on how meat is bad for you and the environment. All of these videos were advised on by Hannah Ritchie, one of the key lieutenants at Our World in Data. During the production of at least one video, Ritchie was a business manager at a meat-free microprotein company. Whatever your take on meat is, these are conflicts of interest that should normally be disclosed by any serious research. But Cr1tikal makes no effort to help you connect the dots.
I don't think I've watched those videos from him. So, I'll ask chat. I don't even know why I'm asking chat. Chat seems to be on one right now, with like, not even having watched the video. I can't imagine with the videos I watch that he makes this video and it's not just like a look at what meat does to the body, which is something you can confirm with tons and tons and tons and tons of evidence. Like there's plenty of things you can say about meat or what the agriculture industry is currently doing to the world. Like there's plenty of evidence out there for that. And I can't imagine there's anything that he's saying that's like, we need to invest in impossible meat at the moment, but maybe he does. Does he? Yeah, they didn't say meat is bad, they said the opposite. Okay. Thanks, the resub Paxil Emperor, this time the Prime Long. I know sometimes meat is not healthy, but we don't care. I've got some breaking news for you. Nutritional science is such a fickle and ever-changing thing. Whatever is accepted as truth last year is probably outdated by this year. I studied so much nutrition in college and fucking all of it's worthless now. The main takeaway is no one fully understands what effect the nutrition has on the human body. It is constantly evolving. There are some things that stay consistent, but on the whole, it's constantly changing. One thing that doesn't change, though, is the current agricultural industry is just in a bad spot. Just in a genuinely bad spot. So I don't know what his video is on, like, meat. Is meat bad for you? I don't know what conclusions he draws there, but I imagine if he's talking about the meat industry, I imagine it is painted in a bad light because no matter how you spin it, the way that it's run right now is just a net bad thing for the planet, everyone, consumers. Is it Prime Chore Kick? Wrong, you're funded by billionaires. You honestly not wrong. I am on Twitch. That's Amazon owned. And you're funded by billionaires. You're on Twitch. Aren't meats inflammatory while vegetables are what? Deflammatory. Oh, we don't need to get into the nutritional science of stuff, man. Everything's bad. Everything's bad for you. Everything's terrible. Hide in fear. Filter feed like SpongeBob. You know what? Actually, hold on. I bet right now you could look up tons of articles on why broccoli's actually terrible for you. I did this one time. I don't even remember why. I think I had to do something on it in college, but I was looking up like why broccoli could be bad for you. It's apparently a carcinogen, which I would have never guessed. Let's see. All right. Broccoli sprouts are inducers of carcinogen. Jesus Christ. Oh, and here's... Wait, this one's completely saying the opposite. Yep. That's the fucking problem with nutritional science, man. It is... You can find 1,000 things saying one thing and 1,000 things saying the exact opposite. So there's a lot here about, like, broccoli and how it can actually help fight cancer, like, be good against it. And then I can also find here... it being a carcinogen. Well, not. I guess it's not just broccoli. This is talking about which vegetables are carcinogen-like, I guess. So it's not just targeting broccoli. Broccoli loaded with formaldehyde, natural product of oxidation, which is known to cause cancer. Thanks to resub exactly where. Source, this one's Thinking Nutrition AU. That's the one about broccoli loaded with formaldehyde, known to cause cancer. Who wrote that? Timmy Turner? I have no fucking clue. The point I was making is nutritional science is so fucking volatile.
Cr1tikal is terrible at disclosing their sponsors. I did
Agreed.
a poll of my audience to see when they think channels should disclaim sponsorship. Most people would prefer
Completely agree with that point.
before the video starts or during intro. Cr1tikal never reveals their sponsors until the very end of their videos. Some sponsors were declared in the last few seconds of the video, some were only mentioned in the text on screen, and in at least one instance, the only disclaimer of sponsorship was in the description. This is a low bar even for YouTube. Plenty of good educational creators disclose their sponsors up front. Why should Cr1tikal be given a pass? Most people who do not watch videos till the very last second, or who cannot read everything that's on the screen, would never be aware of the extent to which Cr1tikal videos are sponsored by billionaires. Cr1tikal also does a terrible job at explaining who their sponsors actually are.
This video is part of a series about climate change supported by Breakthrough Energy,
In their climate change video sponsored by Breakthrough Energy, you're told it is just
a coalition founded by Bill Gates that's working to expand clean energy investment and support the innovations that will lead the world to net zero carbon emissions.
But they don't tell you that Breakthrough Energy is a bunch of venture capitalist funds where billionaires stand to make huge profits from adoption of technologies they invest their billions into. Cr1tikal left a link.
Does that necessarily mean that it's not fighting for that goal, though? Everything's profit-driven. Literally everything. Legitimately fucking everything. But are they not actually what he claims they are? Because that would be a big problem. I don't think that's a very strong point.
In the description that leads to Gates' book sale, but not the fund's official website. YouTube has a policy that flags channels funded by governments with a label that informs viewers of this financial conflict. This was enacted with the aim of combating government misinformation on the platform. You can see this on Cr1tikal German channel that is backed by the government, and YouTube labels it as a German PBS. This same standard should be applied to private funding too. There should be a label that cannot be arbitrarily set or removed by the creator that discloses upfront who is funding their videos. Media consolidation is a major threat to diversity of views, and billionaires, including the ones funding Cr1tikal, are the main driver behind this trend.
I do wonder, and maybe I'll have to go back and watch, if he did disclose at the very beginning or had that label that this channel's talking about, would that change the perception of the information? Because once again, every time I've watched one of their pieces of content, I've never really felt like it was trying to skew me in like investment into lab-grown meat or anything, even if it was just talking about it and like, you know, it could be beneficial in the future. I've never really got the impression that it was ever there to really necessarily promote something, more so just talk about everything around the topic. So I wonder if that was at the beginning, if the perception would change, like it feels like an ad. Interesting. Yeah, people hate Gates. Setting aside Bill Gates, let's assume it was anything, literally anything that seemed like it could be a conflict. I just wonder if that would even change the information. If the video stayed exactly the same, but at the beginning it was mentioned like, hey, this was partially funded by X. Does that change how I perceive the information? Will I now feel like I'm getting more of an ad as opposed to like education on a topic? I'd have to go back and watch on those. Oh, appreciate the big 25 gift sub, Scar. Hope you had a good day, man. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Scar. Thanks to the resub Torin and Soda and Squirt. Does for me. Yeah, maybe it'll be on an individual basis. For example, if I watched a video on lab-grown meat, right, and that video was sponsored by Impossible, I'm going to take a lot of the information with a big grain of salt. It's like, okay, clearly they're not going to touch on anything that might be a little less than savory with lab-grown meat. For example, one thing I read about recently with, I think it's Beyond, or it might be Impossible, one of the things they use in there to get it to look more like meat where it can bleed is actually pretty bad for you. So some of the like meat substitutes aren't like amazing for you. They're not significantly better than just having red meat in terms of like health benefits. But I feel like if that video was funded by Impossible, they're not going to mention that dye, or I don't think it's a dye. I don't remember what it is. They're not going to mention that agent in there isn't actually the best. So it'd no longer be more of a educational take on it. It'd feel more like promoting the brand. So I guess it would truly depend on what the subject is and who's sponsoring it. Thanks for resub Toxic, Micah, and Tier 1 Okarik. They don't just use food coloring? You know, why don't I just look it up? I think it was Impossible. The ingredient is referred to as genetically engineered heme soy leg hemoglobin. It's the color additive Impossible Foods uses to make its plant-based burger appear to bleed as if it were beef. And that thing is not good for you. In fact, they are currently in a lawsuit that challenges the FDA approval of that additive. Here. So to tie it back to this, if that channel made a video on you know, meat substitutes, and they're talking about Impossible, they probably won't mention this, though I do think it's something important to mention. Soy's not bad for you, fucking idiots. Soy itself isn't bad for you. This is what they're arguing is not good for you. But yeah, soy's not going to kill you. But this is apparently not good for you, which is why it's become kind of controversial.
It is not enough to promise editorial independence, because there are multiple ways sponsors can influence content behind the scenes. Cr1tikal maintains their sponsors never
Look at their
have
response
input
to
on
this
their
video.
scripts, but
Oh,
in
they
practice,
responded? I'd like to see their point,
routinely
or
consult
their
with
stance on all of it
researchers
as well.
that come from
So yeah, I'll do that
sponsor-funded
after this.
institutions or scientists directly on their sponsors' payroll.
Thanks to 10 gift
The
subs,
two
great.
videos
Appreciate that,
Cr1tikal
man.
made with Max Roser were sponsored by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But Max Roser's Our World in Data received almost $5 million from Bill Gates, so what is exactly the degree of separation here? In the video on vaccine side effects, Cr1tikal lists 6 experts they consulted with, at least 4 of which are from Gates-funded institutions, and 1 scientist is an executive at the Gates Foundation. How is that not a sponsor commenting on their script? In 3 videos Cr1tikal made for—
See, like when he makes a point like that, I am inclined to agree. At the very least, I don't doubt the experts. I'd be a fool to do that. But why wouldn't you go to something that's so far removed from your sponsor, you couldn't possibly make an argument that it was influenced by it? That is just a big conflict of interest, and it shouldn't be hard to do. That just kind of, it seems like it just kind of boils down to laziness. Or I guess, as this video argues, propaganda. I guess it really could be either one in a case like that. Always doubt the experts. Jesus Christ, we have regressed so much. There are plenty of things, there are plenty of experts worth doubting, but on the whole, I think you should probably trust the people that are more knowledgeable on a topic that you failed in high school. At least hear them out first before going to Facebook to get your truthful information.
For the Templeton World Charity. At least 4 out of 6 scientists have received direct funding for the research from Templeton. In the Cr1tikal video on long-termism, The Last Human, sponsored by Open Philanthropy, 2 out of 3 scientists are from the Oxford's Future of Humanity Institute. The institute, which received at least £15 million from Open Philanthropy. The one LMU Munich scientist was also at Oxford during the Open Philanthropy grants. There is no disclaimer of any of these associations anywhere in Cr1tikal materials. Another long-termist video, the one on the civilizational collapse, was sponsored and researched by William MacAskill. Seemingly a random professor from Oxford University, MacAskill is behind the Centre of Effective Altruism and a number of other charities that have received funding from Open Philanthropy, and some have funded Our World in Data. Nothing about this relationship is ever disclosed in Cr1tikal source materials. Open Philanthropy has given—
Does it need to be though? I don't think I've seen that video. Would it being disclosed change the information? Was he presenting opinion pieces or just facts about the subject? Because that feels like it'd be something weird to disclose in the video, though I guess he could have done due diligence and talked about it in the description if it seems like it would have been a conflict.
Given Cr1tikal more than 5 million euros to expand the channel into foreign languages and to promote long-termist philosophy and effective altruism in their videos. Do you think money doesn't buy influence? So billionaires do political lobbying and campaign financing for the lols, and they don't get any laws influenced in their favor? Do billionaires buy newspapers and donate to media companies?
I keep seeing this perspective. Always trust greedy billionaires in the government. No one is fucking saying that, man. To boil down this, the people that you're getting your information from are also financially benefiting from it. Let's say I all of a sudden completely pivot and I'm preaching, let me think of like a more topical example. I'm preaching about Pfizer turning you into a fucking shaky skeleton. Me preaching that to you and you subbing to me is giving me financial incentive to continue saying that. I'm playing into you and you are paying me for it. The same thing as if you were just paying a greedy corporation. Now you're just paying me as I'm feeding you this information. It's financial incentives all the way down the line, bro. What you need to do is look at all sides of everything and then you form your own conclusions and you form your own stance on it as opposed to blindly following one camp or the other. That's how it should work. No matter who you're going to, you are financially benefiting them. Even if you don't give me money, you being here gives me money if I run an ad. So I have financial incentive to continue to feed you that shit to keep you coming back. So look at all the camps and you form your own fucking opinion instead of blindly following one or the other. It's just that simple. It is super easy. That's how it should work. Instead of just like going to this fucking tribalism. Like that's just, it's so dumb. Thanks to the gift sub Privy and the resub Good in Dan. Oh, hey Dan. In the Prime window.
Companies to support independent journalism. Think of what happened to the COVID-19 vaccine developed by the University of Oxford. Researchers originally planned to release their vaccine patent for free so that third world countries could manufacture their doses faster instead of waiting for the rich countries to donate the vaccines to them. Until Bill Gates stepped in and forced the university to partner with a manufacturer and not release their patents. Against the pleas of the WHO and the developing world that patents would stifle vaccine access, Gates used his $750 million leverage to change a university's course. And he did this to protect the interests of big pharmaceutical companies he has been investing in for decades, which resulted in the global vaccine apartheid and possibly millions of preventable deaths. Money buys influence. It buys it in politics, it buys it in science, it gets you favorable coverage in the media. Gates poured $300
Favorable
million
coverage in the
into
media. This guy gets shit on all the time.
Cr1tikal being one of them. Ask yourself,
Bill Gates is a
when
terrible
was the
example
last
for
time
that.
you read a critical piece on Gates or his foundation?
Today,
If Cr1tikal wants
yesterday,
to
the day
maintain they are
before,
able
everywhere.
to decouple the interests of their funding source from the content in their videos, does this mean that we'll soon get to see a cutely animated character of Bill Gates meeting up with Jeffrey Epstein at his private venues after he was convicted sex trafficker?
Science is.
This has gone really
more
off the
than a
rails
body
from
count.
targeting the
When
channel
big
itself.
money buys big influence, science
This is things people
is
have talked
always
about
the
a lot
casualty.
already.
If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority,
It becomes less diverse, more stringent, and more authoritative.
then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes ambling along.
In the academic community, there is a phenomenon called the chilling effect. It occurs when scientists self-censor
wonder.
or refuse to speak out against the funding source of their institutions out of fear of losing support or getting sacked. With the Gates Foundation, they refer to it as the Bill Chill. Gates' funding priorities have worried scientists for stifling diversity of views for decades. His philanthropic funding made it difficult to find independent reviewers. Through his multi-billion-dollar empire of donations and investments, Gates amassed enough power to single-handedly
Clev and
influence
toxic.
policies of global and national governing bodies. When Gates Foundation pours money into a project, they end up having enough power to veto public policies that don't align with their charity's priorities.
Them and every other giant fucking lobbyist. Why are we no longer talking about the YouTube channel that this video is supposed to be focusing on? Why are we going into the Bill Gates stuff? That is completely irrelevant to the channel that we're talking about. We've completely lost the plot in this now. Because he's a conspiracy nut. I don't know the channel. I couldn't tell you. All the way up until here, I don't think... there were a lot of reaches, but I don't think it was necessarily conspiratorial or anything like that. I don't know why he's going off on this tangent when it doesn't play any role at all in the actual subject matter. I would like to see their response. I think there are a couple of decent points that I think are absolutely 100% on the nose. It should absolutely be more clear when a video is at least partially funded by a fund, a grant, or sponsor's the wrong word because it's not like technically a sponsor, but falling in a gray area isn't a good look either. It should be disclosed, video description and the beginning of the video, which is the common accepted, and I'm pretty sure like the only legal way of disclosing sponsorship when it comes to YouTube videos. Otherwise, you're in an actual violation. So it is shady that it's only the last 10, 15, 20 seconds of the video that he mentions that. I think that is a actual very important thing to call out. Because again, like a lot of people mentioned, seeing that kind of stuff makes you kind of question the motive. So you need to be upfront about it. And then it's obviously going to be up to the individuals on whether or not that skews the data or changes their perspective on the information. But I think it's important to be transparent. And then the other thing that he made a good point on is the fact that they keep using the exact same aggregator for their sources, the R-World, which is also funded by their grant. That is pure laziness at best, and at worst, trying to paint everything in a more positive light for their grant, the people that controlled their money. They should have used more than just that source so many times. And they do use other sources, but that is by far their biggest one, at least from everything we've seen here. He's the resub Corn, Ectobius, Toaster, and 360. Where is their response video to it? I wish we could talk without worrying about ban and cancels in a country with free speech as a constitutional right given by God. Are you taking your medicine? What are you talking about? You can go on Twitter right now and say the most unhinged shit imaginable and find a whole audience based on it. How many people do you know have been thrown in jail in your life for being edgy or saying weird shit or talking about something too controversial? The only one I can think of is Alex Jones. But even he wasn't thrown in jail, but he did get fucking dumped by all his banks and everything because he kept talking about Sandy Hook being a fucking fraud. Andrew Tate still has his Twitter account. He still runs his massive Discord server. In Romania, he's getting fucked with the human trafficking charges. Whether or not those are true, we have no idea yet. I guess we'll see how it all plays out. But he is totally fine. He is posting on Twitter right fucking now. He is still making money, too. He's doing totally fine. Now, you could talk about, like, the people canceling him and attacking him. But everyone gets canceled and attacked. Literally everybody. And you only get canceled if you let yourself get canceled. Fucking Logan Paul had every mainstream news outlet talking about him being a scammer. Every YouTuber, myself included, talking about his scam. And you know what is happening right now with Logan Paul? His dick is getting sucked all over the place. Because he had a good WrestleMania, or a good WWE Rumble last night. You only get canceled if you let yourself get canceled. He put his head down and just ignored it. He gave one apology, well, one real apology and then one complete missed the mark. And then he went right back to the WWE and won over everyone's favor because he did a cool thing at WrestleMania. So I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, this is the link to their response. All right, cool. Thank you. So this is them disputing the claim that most of their investment comes from the grant as well as the VCs and such, citing that 65% comes from the shop, ad revenue, and Patreon. So they are still independent, not primarily funded by VCs. So organizational sponsors like Gates Foundation and Open Philanthropy represent 13%. The fact that you're saying sponsor in this, though, means that you should play by sponsor rules, and instead of just relegating that to the last 20 seconds, it needs to be in the front of the video and in the description. That is how it's always been done. That's how it should be done. I think that's still a very fair critique. You're even calling them a sponsor here. So this is now talking about the Open Philanthropy one, and they're claiming that it was only used for translating videos and creating for TikTok, which I think makes a lot of sense. I imagine they would go to something like that to translate all the videos to branch out into the big platforms like TikTok and reach a wider audience from different languages. It includes 2 sponsored videos. And it represents a small amount of their revenue. I think this is a fair point, but this is something that a lot of like video game journalists always rely on. For example, like when you get a review copy of a game from a developer you have a good relationship with, you're less likely to give it a harsh review because you don't want to burn that bridge. Right? So that's why people view it as a conflict of interest. If you're being sponsored, at least in part, by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the topic you're talking about kind of touches on some things they're involved in, you're less likely to be critical of it. That's why people view it more as like a conflict thing, which is why it should be disclosed earlier on that this is in part funded by some of that money. Now, of course, I'm not saying they are. I have no way of knowing if they are, but that's why it's perceived that way. Thanks to the anonymous gift sub and the resub dummy. And Tommy. I still think this is a fair point. I understand that it's probably, and in fact, I know it is a pretty good source, and I know it's an aggregator for a lot of information, but at the very least, I still think for this scale, they should be using multiple sources for these things, instead of just relying on the same one. Especially because, as they mention, it is at least receiving funding from the same foundation that they have as well. So at the very least, just for the sake of optics, why not use other sources to corroborate the data? It shouldn't be that hard. I imagine there's plenty of other equally reliable sources for a lot of the topics they want to cover. Are they in trouble? It depends. For a lot of people, this ruins their ability to take the channel seriously and like believe everything they're being told by the channel. And for others, it's viewed as a nothing burger, where it's like, well, this just kind of means like this whole video was just a hit piece where optimism equal propaganda. And I'm not saying either side's right or wrong here, because it is kind of an interesting situation. I think the video made some good points, but then some bad ones, like way off ones. Oh, here, they're even talking about using others. So then just also cite that. I feel like there's nothing wrong with citing that as well, in addition to these, so that way it doesn't look like it's just all coming from our world. Also just cite from your independent fact checkers and their sources. You immediately tackle the problem. If you're already doing more than just using this, then cite them as well. I feel like that's only fair to them too. They do cite it? Where? I even went into the, which one was it? This one? And it's all our world. So why not just also drop them? One video. Okay, I guess we'll go to another one, but even still, I'm assuming they also use their fact checkers for that one, right? Why not just cite them there? First link. You missed it. First link of what? Of the video I was just on?
Since
Well, no, this is where that guy got all the our world, and here's two others. But our world is the one that pops up so often, which is what the whole video was talking about. I think this is the one where there's 81 cited sources and 27 are our world. So why not just also include the other ones that corroborated this data? Is what I'm saying. Why are we not talking about that? Because it's a good source. I get that, but you're not understanding. As they also admit, it is partially funded by the Gates Foundation, which they also have received funding from. So why not, for the full sake of like everything being, honky-dory, also confirm it with their fact checkers that I'm assuming they already used to do that, and then just cite that here as well as an additional source. It's a good source. Why would they go to a less funded source? Because they are receiving funding from the same source. It is a bad look. If I am making a video about Impossible Meat and it being great, why am I going to only use Impossible Meat to corroborate my data? It would look bad. Which is what this whole fucking thing stemmed from. And it could have been avoided if they also just cited their fact checkers instead of only using our world for these certain instances. I get they use other sources, but when a third of it comes from the same source that is also funded by your sponsor, it looks bad. What are we not understanding? This is what it all boiled down to. They agree like a paragraph down. I haven't even finished, but they are literally agreeing from everything I've seen here. But they're also giving very clear evidence that they are not primarily funded by these foundations, these organizations. They're not primarily sponsor funded. They are independent, which immediately blasts home the idea that they are a propaganda machine when their financial incentives don't make sense. If only 4% of their revenue comes from these organizations, why the fuck would they bend the knee to them as opposed to the people that actually fund them? And here, right here, you're right. Even agreeing with that. It's just a matter of being a little more open with it. Instead of jumping to this extreme, it could have been this one. Literally what I am fucking saying. Holy shit. Very interesting, though. They're literally not propaganda, though. Yeah, this video didn't make any convincing arguments or compelling arguments to convince me that they're a propaganda machine. But it did point out things that I do think they have done improperly. Nothing that I think ruins the channel for me or anything, but definitely some things that I think they should work on. Thanks, the resub accent. What would they be again, I don't just why am I going to explain it for the fifth fucking time? At this point, just watch it yourself. Christ. I have summarized it like fucking 15 times at this point. The guy made the video for clout. I don't know the channel. I don't know anything about the channel. I think the video could have been made from a place of like genuine concern for the truthfulness of information, but then lost the plot halfway through and started to immediately jump to the conclusion that it must all be propaganda because some things were a little improperly handled. Again, I think one of the big glaring things is he mentions the carbon emissions video and he cites a source that didn't exist when the video was made. That is not a fair critique. That's not a fair point. That is just a wrong point. You can't critique a video for something that didn't exist when it was made. Like, again, there were things in that video that I think were way off mark, but then also he did make a couple, I think, very good points about how this channel should be improved in regards to its transparency, especially with its sponsors and their sources. It really boils down mainly to that so far, at least for me. Maybe you might feel differently. But to me, it just highlighted that this channel needs to be more transparent when it is funded at least partially by an organization, and also making it seem like they're less reliant on just one source for the majority of their information. I think this was a very insightful conversation, if nothing else. This was a very interesting topic all around. And I think this was probably not the right channel to target, but there are actual channels that are propaganda machines. Plenty. So I think it does highlight like an issue, albeit a bit incorrectly, with the one that it chose. I think it's an interesting topic. How much are they paying you? Shit, man, not enough, I guess. I'll need to tap into that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation paycheck pretty soon. Thanks to the resub, Mano and Chromosome. And the resub, Weird Champ. No, I didn't moist meter Puss in Boots. It was a good movie though. I really liked it. You see the 2-hour-long video covering the guy wanting to sue Roblox for the oof sound? Yeah. Hey, Rocket. And yeah. I've already forgot that guy's name. But yeah, I'm familiar. I'd actually known about that guy way before the whole oof thing. No, not the channel's name. I forgot the... what is it? Tommy Tallarico? I'd already done a deep dive on Tommy Tallarico because he did this absolutely abominable house tour once that we were making fun of him for. So that was kind of a wild callback to see that he got a whole video made about him being kind of a degenerate. You said he was cool on his tour video? Yeah, cool in the nerdiest way. But you may remember I was also very harsh on his inventions. I called them the dumbest shit ever. One of his inventions was literally a Nintendo Switch, but if you're absolutely fucking stupid. Like if you wanted the worst version of a Nintendo Switch. Yeah, his house was like super nerdy cool. Thanks to resub Elisa, Boneless and Booty. So just a normal Switch. Oh, I guess with the Steam Deck being out, yeah, you'd be kind of dumb to only have the Nintendo Switch if you're a big handheld gamer. Play all your shit at 30 FPS. Might as well just get a Steam Deck, yeah. Guess you're not wrong. Here's a tier 1 basic. New Last of Us was amazing. That's exciting. Last of Us has been really good so far. The first 2 episodes slap. Clearly haven't seen the third one because I've been streaming. But I will watch it, of course. Let me take a tinkle and fill up my water real quick, though. I'll be right back. Thanks resub Alpha and Muse and Shebe. Resub Pudgy. Any speedrun games yet? Yeah, I'll probably announce the new 10k bounty tomorrow. I think I've got a good game cooked up for it. He's a prime slime. Yeah, I saw Carl posted this. Billy Mitchell, man. He just can't stop collecting these L's. Bi-monthly seems reasonable. No, I'm doing it once a month for the speedrun bounties. Yeah. What do you do now? I don't know. I haven't seen this yet. I'm really hoping that this is truly just like, you know, dead to rights. Billy Mitchell's whole case against Carl, it just has to get thrown out. Completely unusable now. I don't know what evidence could have come out here. Maybe a sex tape where he just admits to being like a complete fucking loser who bullies people legally. I don't know. But I'm excited.
Hello, you absolute legends. In 2019, Video Game Player of the Century Billy Mitchell sued Twin Galaxies for defamation after they removed his high scores from their database and said he didn't achieve them on original hardware. For almost 4 years, this lawsuit has dragged on, and thankfully for everyone involved, it looks like it should be wrapping up and going to trial sometime this year. The crux of Twin Galaxies' defense so far has been centered around 2 videotapes that show Billy's high scores, and it's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that the gameplay seen on these videotapes cannot come from an original Donkey Kong arcade. Instead, they must have come from an emulator. Billy Mitchell's
just to quickly bring everyone up to speed here, Billy Mitchell, Video Game Player of the Century, also punching bag for the regular show, where he even tried to sue them for making fun of him in an episode, has come after many people legally for all kinds of defamation cases. And the core of it boils down to people accusing him of being a cheater. And I'm going to go a step further. They're not just accusing him like, you know, allegations of cheating. They have caught him being a cheater. You're looking at the face of a man who peaked in 1980 whatever with Donkey Kong and cheated his whole way to fame. The guy is caught using emulated software to get the high scores, but he has always maintained his innocence. And that's where it all stems from. He still claims he's never cheated, and anyone that makes fun of him or says otherwise gets a nice fat lawsuit from Billy Mitchell. Cooked up in the deepest pits of his basement, I guess. I'm pretty sure he writes them himself, and he takes it as far as it can go. Have you been sued? Billy Mitchell has still not sued me, and I have made fun of him fucking 50 times by now. I don't know why. I actually feel left out. I feel like I'm not part of the cool kids lunch table here because Billy Mitchell won't sue me. He is suing Carl because Carl used a meme of Billy that made fun of him and insinuated he was a cheater. Carl used a meme. I point blank called this absolutely disheveled, drunk-looking man a cheater a million times. Point blank. And he won't come after me? Asshole. I'm gonna sue him for refusing to sue me. Thanks to the Prime Corn and Tier 1 Vibe and Tier 1 Jarell and the resub Foreign and Machini.
seems to have lied and said he played on an arcade machine when he in fact didn't. And this opens up the possibility for cheating in numerous ways. In his lawsuit against Twin Galaxies, Billy claims these videotapes don't matter because he achieved the scores live and he has witnesses. How is it possible that he performed them at a live event in front of hundreds of people if he faked it and actually played on an emulator? The videotapes must be fake or are not his actual gameplay, or should just be ignored because he has real people that say he really did it, and they saw it happen, so it must be legit. As Billy said in his lawsuit, if everyone is lying, it must be a conspiracy akin to that of the Kennedy assassination. But here's the...
Wait, what? Pardon? What was that? Thus, Twin Galaxies' case essentially rests on a conspiracy nearly as broad and untenable as the Kennedy assassination. Like I said, I'm pretty sure he writes these himself. What self-respecting lawyer is going to sit down and put that in text? Who would do that? Like, I'm surprised he doesn't go into like the Zapruder film. What they faked here is akin to the Zapruder film. And in fact, the moon landing too, while we're at it.
Assassination. But here's the problem. The videotapes were the only tangible evidence these scores ever happened, so that's all anyone had to go off. Aside from the tapes, it was just people saying that it happened, which really doesn't cut it. There was no footage of Billy actually playing. There was nothing to indicate that he was even there, or...
I'm sorry to keep pausing so frequently, it's just such a wacky case. He still believes that he shouldn't be accused of being a cheater, because even if those tapes are faked or whatever, people saw him do it live and have verbally said, he did it. That's fucking useless. I could get people together and say that I grew 5 inches, but then if you see me on camera and I'm 5'6", I can't just be like, no, that doesn't make sense. That's as untenable as the Kennedy assassination. This is all fabricated. It's fraudulent. Look at all these people that said that I grew 5 inches. It's fucking worthless. It's a fucking worthless statement, and I don't know if Billy's too stupid to realize that, or if he truly does believe it. Because why would anyone take you at your word? I could say I got the high score on Donkey Kong. I got a 15 billion. And then I could have everyone in chat say, yeah, Charlie got a 15 billion. Should Twin Galaxies put that on their website and make me the world record holder? I don't have any video evidence of it, but I have a ton of people that said I did it. The answer should be a resounding no. It's so silly. It's so silly. It is just so dumb.
That he played at all. That is, until now. For the first time in 15 years, photos of Billy Mitchell at one of these events where he claims to have achieved one of his world records have surfaced. And I'm not going to beat around the bush. These photos absolutely destroy Billy's case. He is done. There is no more doubt Billy will lose his lawsuit. These photos...
This is already so fucking good. So these photos destroy the lawsuit. Why? The referee who looks really sad to be there? Did he let the cat out of the bag? Man, that tie is mean though. Look at Billy Mitchell's tie. Holy shit, Captain America over here. I'm very curious how these destroy it. Let's go.
There is no more doubt Billy will lose his lawsuit. These photos do more damage than anything that has come before them, and I'm not exaggerating. Even if you disregard all of the videotape evidence, Billy's world records would still be disqualified, and he would still be banned for lying just because of these photos. So how is that even possible? Let's find out. I really hope you enjoy.
Man, this would be worse than if his sex tape leaked,
now,
I guess.
Legends, I am super excited because this video is sponsored by Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon is a high-protein, zero-sugar cereal that just might be the greatest thing humans have ever invented. I absolutely love cereal. I could easily smash an entire box. But generally, cereal has very high sugar and low protein. It's just not ideal for someone like me who wants to lose fat and build muscle.
What cereal?
When Magic Spoon wanted to sponsor me, I was very skeptical. I am a cereal connoisseur. This is my ballpark. I still eat it. But I was very impressed with how good it is. I can easily fit Magic Spoon into my diet because of its macronutrient profile, but it honestly feels like I'm cheating because of how delicious
for
it
a tiny
tastes.
box. The box
Personally,
isn't tiny.
My favorite flavor is fruity,
at least not compared
and
to
I
other
eat it before bed.
cereals.
This helps me stick to my diet throughout the entire day because I really have something to look forward to. For those looking to improve their body composition or just want a cereal with more natural ingredients, I cannot recommend Magic Spoon enough. And if you click the link
It's
in
the
the
same size as my
description or
Lucky
use the
Charms
promo
box. They're
code
in my
LEGEND,
pantry together.
you
They're
will
the same
get
size.
$5 off your order.
Though I guess you
Magic
could get like a
Spoon
jumbo
are so
size.
confident they provide a 100% money-back guarantee if you are not happy. Again, you can scan the QR code, use the code LEGEND, or go to magicspoon.com/legend to get $5 off today. When Twin Galaxies banned Billy Mitchell in 2018, they did so because of videotapes showing two scores. The first is a 1.047 million point score Billy achieved in 2004, known as the King of Kong score. It's called this because this score is featured in the King of Kong documentary. The second is a 1.05 million point score Billy achieved in 2007, which is known as the Mortgage Brokers score. This is because he supposedly achieved it at a mortgage brokers convention. The videotapes for both of these scores show footage that isn't legitimate. This is a fact, and it's why he was banned. But aside from...
Let me read that one more time. It's been a while since I've seen this. Yep. That sounds about right. It is inarguable that he was cheating, by the way. It's not allegations. It is legitimately inarguable. I can't remember. Did we go over the entire evidence package on stream at some point, or am I having a fake memory right now? Maybe we did it on the podcast. Because I do remember going through at least a good chunk of it. Quite a while back. I think Resub average and Legionnaire. No, it wasn't on stream. Maybe it was on the podcast then.
And it's why he was banned. But aside from that, there was no other evidence that Billy even played the game, aside from a few people saying it happened. Well, to be completely fair, the King of Kong score actually does have 0 witnesses. It's the Mortgage Brokers score that Billy has a few witnesses for. And it's this Mortgage Brokers score that we now have photos for. So let's take a deeper look into this. Of course, as the tape shows the score wasn't done on an original arcade, we'd assume he didn't actually get the score at the event. But for a moment, let's forget all about the videotape and humor Billy's argument that the tapes don't matter. In his lawsuit against Twin Galaxies, Billy submitted 5 witness statements saying they were at the event when the score happened. 2 of these statements are from people who worked at the convention. They just say they were there when it happened, but they don't say they actually saw him get it, and they aren't even Donkey Kong players, so they have no idea what's going on anyway. We all know that Billy likes...
I want to see the other ones. Number 3 is just a single sentence. During the event, Billy played in a very large convention room and interacted with and performed in front of thousands of people, myself included. And? It's... Oh, this is all one person's statement. Oh, I thought this was 5 or 6 different statements from different people. I was like, what the fuck? There's nothing more there. This is one person's account. Okay. This is part of the whole thing from her statement. I was like, Jesus, come on. I don't know if I feel like going through the whole thing. But I guess a written testimonial claiming that they saw it, that's all you need. Surely there's no such thing as lying. I am still a member of the Florida Medical Board, and many of the members I worked with are still active members now. All this information is very available, very public, and quite memorable. Sheila, why are you writing that with so much attitude? You're not the one on trial for cheating or anything. That was a very aggressive sign-off.
At the convention. They just say they were there when it happened, but they don't say they actually saw him get it, and they aren't even Donkey Kong players, so they have no idea what's going on anyway. We all know that Billy likes to lie in public, as he recently showed, so a random person thinking a score happened when it really didn't doesn't mean much. So we can disregard those 2 statements. This leaves 3 witnesses that say they directly saw him get the world record. The first is from a guy called Richard Mallion. He says he watched Billy's score reach beyond 1 million points and that he saw him achieve his targeted score. Richard is actually a childhood friend of Billy's. In fact, he appeared opposite Billy in the school yearbook. But let's not hold that against him. While it is common for friends to lie for each other, let's not assume that's what happened. Now, when I'm deciding whether or not someone is trustworthy, what I do is create 2 columns. One for yes, I should trust them, and one for no, I should not. Then I put things into each column and weigh them up at the end. So first, I can see that Richard dresses really well. He has a nice suit, and he has a nice watch.
Very
No one
trustworthy.
who dresses this well could lie. So I'm going to put that into the yes column. For the no column, there isn't much I found out about Richard that really concerns me, except for this super tiny detail of him pleading guilty to conspiracy, securities fraud, money laundering, and criminal contempt in 19...
Could have happened to anyone, and in fact, I'm going to tell you what happened. He was set up by twin galaxies. They knew there was a connection between the Duck and Billy Mitchell, the King of Kong, and they tried to attack everyone in Billy's circle. Complete misunderstanding, very fabricated, not real.
1996 after an FBI sting
I wouldn't hold it
operation.
against him.
I mean, it's probably nothing, but it would be remiss of me if I didn't include it. Back to the yes column, Richard just seems like a super friendly and nice guy. I mean, no one who looks this happy could lie, so this has to go into the yes column. Now, looking at the no column, I'm going to be super nitpicky here and include this other small thing. And look, maybe this is being too judgmental, but I'm going to go ahead and add to the fact that he was charged again with fraud in 2019 by the SEC and had to pay back $750,000.
Once again, Carl, this was a setup. My man, this was twin galaxies trying to take out the witnesses. You know, no different than Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, where Scott had to go through all the ex-boyfriends and shit. This is twin galaxies going through all of the witnesses right now. You can't hold it against Richard here. He did nothing wrong.
It's probably not even worth bringing up, but again, I just want to be fully transparent. However, I must say that Richard has some really good motivational quotes on his Twitter feed. I mean, look at these quotes. They are truly inspirational, and he put his name in bigger text than the person who actually said the quote. So when you think about it, who said the quote really? I'm going to have to put this into the yes column. Now, I should probably leave it there,
Richard earned
and at
that.
this point, I really am not being fair to Richard, but I'll just add one more thing, and I'll let you decide. In 2021, Richard was unfortunately arrested for conspiracy to commit fraud. Look, he has just not been lucky when it comes to fraud. He keeps getting caught. I, for one...
This picture here... Now I know it was a frame job, and I know it's all false, because they're doing my man Richard so dirty with this mugshot here. Like, it looks like he's fucking skydiving, like all the skin's being pushed towards the back of his skull here. It's like he's fucking melting. Where does the neck start and the chin end? Oh, man. Is he laying down and they took this picture? What is going on here?
Keeps getting caught. I, for one, do not hold this against him. When I look at this table, I see 3-3. It's pretty
That's
even.
tough. That's a
Personally,
toss-up.
I'm leaning towards trusting the guy, but you let me know in the comments what you think. Okay, so Billy's first witness is a bit sketch. Who's number 2? Billy's second witness that says he saw him
Oh,
get
God,
it
it's
is
Todd Rogers.
Oh boy, this is not going well. Okay, hit me with number 3. Surely we're going to get a winner.
He's probably not going to touch on Todd Rogers. Todd Rogers is another notorious cheater of these old game high scores. He has a whole saga of his own. I don't even think I could do it justice trying to summarize it here. But that is so poetic that one of the other witnesses is fucking Todd Rogers. That's amazing. This is like a team of Avengers that he has for witnesses.
The third witness that says they saw Billy get the score is Kim Mahoney, who is also Todd Rogers' girlfriend. I'm going to be completely honest here.
Coincidence.
I'm getting the impression that Billy's witnesses may not be entirely trustworthy. Anyway, let's take a look at these new photos. Remember, this
He's a
is
prime
the first
Versace.
time we've seen any footage of Billy at this event in 15 years. So there's Billy and Todd, and Billy's talking to some dude, and that looks like the Donkey Kong cabinet behind Billy. It's got a VCR on top, which is how they recorded the score. It all looks pretty legit so far. There's Billy and Todd posing with a couple of people. There's a camera that was recording Billy play, even though that footage doesn't seem to exist for some reason.
They
Here's
left the
Billy
lens
and Todd
on.
posing
Lens cap.
again with the thumbs up. Maybe this is just after Billy got the world record. I have to admit, everything here looks pretty legit, and oh my god, what is that?
I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm not knowledgeable enough. What is it? Is it a copyright 2023 on there?
That joystick is not an original Donkey Kong joystick. This arcade machine does not have original, unmodified Donkey Kong arcade hardware.
Oh,
This
jeepers.
is an original Donkey Kong stick. It's got a big black ball and a short column. The stick
Oh,
on
wow.
Billy's arcade is a tall stick with a smaller ball, and it's obviously red, so the stick has been changed to something else.
Easily explainable. This machine was considered so legit that they had to change out the stick. Otherwise, because people were fighting each other to compete for high scores on it because it was so fucking real. So the stick just got worn out from overusage, but the machine, that's the only thing that's been changed. That much I'm sure of. Or, you know what, that's a good point. This could have been a special edition cabinet that was sent to Billy Mitchell by Nintendo themselves. They were so happy that the King of Kong wanted to use an arcade cabinet that they made that they gave him a special red stick. You know, for the red, white, and blue, because he's such a patriot, obviously. Easily explainable.
On top of that, it appears to be an 8-way stick. Now, the original Donkey Kong stick is 4-way, which means it can only go up, down, left, and right. But an 8-way stick, like the one you would find on all modern arcades, can also go diagonally. When it comes to Donkey Kong, an 8-way stick fundamentally changes the way the game can be played. If you want to steer barrels while on a ladder, you have to stop and hold left or right.
Thanks, the resub, sweetie. Oh, you're talking about wormholes. Wormholes is more feasible than faster than light. And that's nuts. I didn't see that one, Girth, but that's a great comment. Thanks, the resub, NetOps. Don't black holes break time or something like that? So maybe they use it. I don't know, I'm just spitting shit. They use a black hole to do what? Black holes are crazy, by the way. Yes, everything is fucked in a black hole, including time. Not even time can escape. That would be the worst form of travel if you're using a black hole. It means you go in, you get spaghettified, and you just fucking insta-die. It is literally the absence of things being able to escape. So you would just be trapped in the black hole. It'd be the opposite of travel. It'd be as far from travel as you can get. Thanks, the resub, Buzz. Oh yeah, I saw that. That one is just a really sad situation, Sylvie. How do you know you've never been in one before? True! That is true. In fact, no one or nothing that we've ever sent into a black hole has made it. So we don't know. Maybe you go into a black hole and you actually like travel through it like, you know, like a fucking dishwasher. You just go around in a cycle, then you get spit out into a dimension of big-titted anime alien girls. Fucking babes as far as the eye can see. You're very misinformed about aliens. Inform me. I am begging. I want to be a believer that aliens have visited this planet and continue to visit this planet in secret, only showing themselves in trailer parks and small schools for some reason. I want to. What don't you understand about that? I'm just facing the reality of it. Did you drop any info? Hold on. I missed your comment. Oh, wow. Jesus, you're having a full meltdown. Anal probing isn't even a real thing, you moron. You get all your UFO info from fucking movies and TV. You get all of your UFO info from fucking TV too! What do you mean? All of your sightings are on TV. What are you fucking talking about? And then you said reptilians are part of the aliens. And faster than light is an outdated theory. Warp drives are proven. You're misinformed. What are you... What? Are you having an episode of psychosis? Thanks for the resub, Fuzzy. Thanks for the resub, Eric in the Prime Brody. Tom DeLonge knows all. Oh, he actually has a very interesting story. They actually used some of his research for something at NASA recently. Jack Sarfati talks about the technology behind warp drives. Who mentioned fucking warp drives? I don't know why you're harping on that subject. That word had not left my mouth until I read your comment history of your 86 message meltdown. Who is Jack Sarfati, though? I don't know that name. Is a theoretical physicist. His publications revolve around quantum physics and consciousness. Here's the 5 gift subs, Jake. And the bits, Jake. You need to do the research. I'm not talking about fucking warp drives! Why do I need to do research on warp drives? That goddamn name didn't leave my mouth. He brought it up. What the fuck? What is wrong with you? Thanks to the bits, Sylvie and Lords. But warp drives are an important part of alien lore. Maybe, but I wasn't talking about fucking warp drives. Jesus Christ. You asked for answers. On what? Warp drive? When did I ask for answers on warp drive? I want alien evidence. What the fuck are you talking about? Who am I talking? That is evidence? So, let's assume every alien has their own warp drive motorcycle. Why are they visiting trailer parks and fucking small schools to warn us about the future, then only telling children? That isn't an answer. You weirdo. That still doesn't make any fucking sense. That chatter didn't read jack shit. It's theoretical physicist, meaning it hasn't been put into effect and there's no way to test any theories. I don't care about warp drives if they're real or not. God damn it. Jesus fucking Christ. They're not real, by the way. The bit guy was right. It is just a theory of how warp drive may somewhat be almost a feasible idea. He's the bits, Blake. The Travis Walton McMinneyville UFO photographs. Roswell, Phoenix Light. Oh, you didn't just use Roswell. My dad's super into that one. That one has been debunked 1,000 fucking times. I don't know the Minnieville one. And the Phoenix Light I also know got blasted. Though I don't remember what the debunking was on that. The WoW signal. That's a fun one. We actually went over that one on stream. That one has an entire page dedicated to how it was not real. But I used to really like that one, and I actually learned it wasn't anything interesting from stream, because I brought it up one time talking about aliens, and chat was like, yeah, you know that actually got completely debunked, completely. So we looked it up. Here. It's even in its own Wikipedia. If you just go on its Wikipedia, it has an entire thing breaking down what the WoW signal actually was. But I used to think that, I still do think this one was pretty cool. Thanks, Resub Swavey. Good point, Swavey. Good point. Why is it called WoW? Because on the paper, the guy wrote WoW with an exclamation point, so they called it the WoW signal. That's how it got its name. There's a bit Sylvie. And the Resub Goober. And the Prime Drago. They actually wrote Pog. That's what the signal was, yeah. It was a warning. They actually sent us an emote. What do you think about ghosts and shit? That's another one I think would be super cool if it was real, but is not. There's no evidence of paranormal ghosts and shit like that, unfortunately. But that's another one I think would be very cool. Thanks the bits, Redna. And Tier 1 Anu. And the resub Meow. What about God? Oh, we're getting so deep. I think no matter what your stance on religion is, no matter what your stance on like higher powers are, at some point when you go far enough back, you have to accept something came from nothing. So I still do believe there is something out there, like a higher power, like a God, but I really just don't think God would want people like doing what a lot of people do, like giving money to pastors for a fucking private jet or a $120,000 Rolex and bragging in front of the congregation. I feel like that'd be like the number one thing they wouldn't want. But I do absolutely think there is a higher power there. Charlie's religious. I got baptized twice, but I'm not really religious. Not anymore. Yeah, I've told that story multiple times. I got baptized twice. Once when I was a baby, and then once when I was like fucking 13. I was super religious, and I was really concerned that maybe the Lord didn't see me get baptized the first time. So I got baptized the second time just to be super certain he watched. Yeah, I was super, super religious. And I guess since we're going down, I've already said all of this before, but I'll say it again. I guess the reason I'm not anymore is because that was like the worst period in my entire life. I was always fearful of everything, concerned that I was always committing like a sin. It kept me completely afraid of everything all the time. It wasn't doing great for my mental health. It really just made me afraid of everything and every decision and every action I'd take. I only listened to Christian music, and I listened to the same 3 songs on repeat because I knew those had those were safe to listen to Christian songs. I would only, like, anytime I had an impure thought, I would change my clothes because I felt like I dirtied them by just having impure thoughts. Like, it was bad. Did you listen to Skillet? It was Skillet, Pillar, what was the third one? Who sang Meant to Live? Switchfoot? I think it was Switchfoot. Yeah, I think it was Switchfoot. Those were like the main 3. There's the resub Boson, Duda, and the Prime Walter, and the resub Trippy. Were your parents hyper religious? Nope, they never were. I was the very religious one because I was friends with a pastor's son, so he would always be like teaching me about like the Bible and stuff, and I tried to get my parents on board, and they were super supportive. Like, we'd go to church all the time, even though they weren't really into it. But it was just miserable for me, just living in fear constantly. Why were you baptized then? Because they let me. They said sure. What were you scared of? What do you mean, what was I scared of? Literally everything. Like, a lot of the sermons that I was getting at church were always, like, really scary ones. Like, when God tested Abraham, like, I need you to sacrifice your... Not, was it Abraham? Might have been. Like, bring your son up to the mountain. I need you to sacrifice him for me to prove that you'll do anything for me. And then as he's about to kill his son, he's like, wait, I was just making sure you'd actually do things like this for me. Like, hearing those kind of stories is scary. Like, wow, like, he's pretty strict. There's a lot of things that are not allowed, you know? There's a lot of sins. How strict is he going to be? Am I going to hell because I had this impure thought of boobies? You know, like, it was just miserable. I was always scared. So I eventually just stopped going to church and I stopped being super religious. But I have nothing against people who are. I totally get it. But I will say, even when I was still hyper-religious, it always did rub me the wrong way, having to do, like, donations in the beginning of church and stuff. And the church was massive. It was a mega church. I always felt like there'd be no... Like, it makes no sense why the Lord would want the pastors and everyone in, like, a crazy life of luxury at the expense of the people that go there. Because the people that went there, they weren't super well off. Like, a lot of the people that went there, they didn't have a ton of money to be giving to that church. And they were still taking it from them. That always was kind of weird to me. Still is. Then you have pastors like Kenneth Copeland bragging about their private jet and defending why they need a private jet so they can be closer to God instead of in a tube with devils. Then you had that other guy, I think it was Peter Popoff, who was bragging that his Rolex cost more than anyone in the congregation's house. Like, that's... I don't think that's right. I feel like that would just go against everything that the religions are supposed to be about. He's a resub certified. Didn't God also ask for 100 foreskins? That wasn't God. We actually talked about that on the podcast with Wendigoon. That's the story of Saul and David, I believe. Saul wanted to give David an impossible task, so he was given the order to get 100 foreskins from Philistines. It was supposed to get him killed, because the only way to prove he got the foreskins would be to kill them. So he thought by giving him this, it would lead to his death. But he returned with the 100 foreskins as requested. He killed 100 Philistines and delivered the foreskins. I think it was Saul and David. Thanks for resub Sky, Formula, and the Prime Burp. Thought he killed 200. 100, 200, something. It was a huge number. I don't remember what it was. That shit's in the Bible? It is in the Bible. Thanks to the resub. Inori and the Prime Hazard. I gotta pee real quick. Give me 2 seconds. Be right back. I'm back. Oh. Had a little double flusher. He's a tier 1 Northman. The resubs in. No idea remains. He's a prime sheriff. I think it's the resub Raisin Bran. Am I a fan of Kingdom Hearts? Nope. Kingdom Hearts 3 I still think is one of the worst stories in all of gaming. I'll say it. I haven't replayed 1 and 2 in a long time, so those might still hold up and be fun, but I played through 3 when that came out. Man, what a disaster. I think the bit's beefy. You picked the next speedrun game? Yep. I think so. I think I've got a good one. I think it's the bits Bebo. Thought you said Forspoken is worse than Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, that was I was a little lost in the moment. Forspoken's not nearly as bad as Kingdom Hearts when it comes to its story. It's just not. I was just getting a little lost in the sauce on that. He's a give sub Rin. No, I can't say I saw that, Tori. Which Souls game should be my first? Dark Souls 3. I think that's such a great starting point. I'd say do 3 first. Is Sekiro the hardest Souls game? I don't think so. It's really just Ishin's Sword Saint that's like super, super tough. I don't know what the hardest Souls game would be. I keep flip-flopping on what the hardest one would be. Is it Prime Graving? I'm sorry to hear that, Camus. Yeah, it's rough. Like the resub Skelix. Demon Souls is pretty like Demon Souls, like it's very, very easy if you know the bosses beforehand. But I hit a fucking wall going to the fire boss with a club, and that was so fucking miserable. Bloodborne is super tough. Maybe Bloodborne. Bloodborne is pretty unforgiving. Thanks the Prime. Mumet. You still haven't killed the queen in Bloodborne, right? No, I've 100%ed that game. What are you talking about? Even right before Elden Ring came out, I did a whole Souls marathon and I 100%ed every boss in every Souls game. I've done every single boss. Oh wait, no, you're talking about Chalice dungeons, aren't you? Yeah, I didn't do all the Chalice dungeons. I didn't bother with the Chalice dungeon bosses. Thanks to resub, Trevro. Hype to join next speedrun. Any info? Nope. Everyone's gonna be dropped in blind, tackling it. It's gonna be nice, even footing. So you didn't 100%. No, I guess not for Bloodborne. Not wrong. I forgot about the Chalice dungeons. Is the resub worthwhile? You gonna play a new SpongeBob game? Yeah, when's it come out? Is it today or tomorrow? Cosmic Shake. Thanks a resub, Saffron. Tomorrow, okay. Ain't no way this man's about to stall Hi-Fi Rush for SpongeBob. Yeah, you're right. That wouldn't be fair. Is it on Steam? Or is it Epic Games? It's on Steam. Alright, I'll start it real quick then.